Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone in this room with us here today. I wanted to thank you all for joining us for this interesting and fascinating discussion on digital technology innovations, case studies from Asia and the Pacific, webinar series number 3 about fintech advancements with 5G. My name is Calvin Chan, and I will be your master of ceremonies for today. May I please invite the technical moderator, Louisa, to please provide some hygiene announcements at the beginning before we formally start.
Dear participants, thank you for joining. My name is Louisa and I'll be the technical moderator for today. If you need any technical assistance, please contact me on the chat. All participants are self-muted, so please make sure your microphone is switched off to avoid any background noise. I would like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be used for report writing purposes. Please add your name and affiliation for making it easier for the organizers. Also, captioning is available for this session. Click Live Transcribe at the menu tab for captioning. We would like you to engage in our session through Slido word cloud at the end of the session. The link to Slido would be available in the chat throughout the session and will be displayed on the screen at the end of the session. Thank you very much, and I wish you a successful event.
Thank you very much, Louisa. Now, may I please invite you to take a brief photo of all the participants here in this room for the moment. Thank you.
All right, then if you'd like to turn on your cameras, I'll add you in gallery view to see everyone's faces. Beautiful. All right, then I'll count to 3 and take the picture. You can smile. Perfect. So 1, 2, 3. Right, once more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louisa. Now, may I have the honor of turning the floor over to our distinguished moderator for today, Mr. Vishnuram Ovi, a representative of TSDSI. Mr. Vishnu, the floor is now yours, and thank you very much for moderating today's session.
Thanks, Calvin, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the ITU Asia and the Pacific Regional Dialogue on Digital Transformation. We are gearing up for inclusive and sustainable development. This session is on digital technology innovations, case studies from India and the Asia-Pac region, series webinar number 3, and we will focus on fintech advancements with 5G. We have an excellent array of speakers for you all geared up today. We are very pleased to see excitement. I personally am very excited to be here and to listen to these experts today. My name is Vishnu. I'm a consultant with the TSDSI. I am also very delighted to welcome the distinguished speakers and the participants. We hope to learn and have fun today. Before we begin, we want to set the context of and the background for our sessions today. There is a packed agenda for today. We have 4 expert speakers, as you see here. There is very nice, exciting talks all arranged for you. We'll come to that in a bit. I want to invite somebody, Miss Arpita, for setting the context. She is Managing Director of M-CRIL, incorporating EDA rural systems to set the context, provide some brief introduction about the session. Miss Arpita, we are honored to have you here. She is currently the Managing Director of M-CRIL, an ESG-focused boutique consulting firm with a strong footprint in Asia since last 3 decades, and with Asian Development Bank as a strategic investor. We have her bio on the website. If you like, you can take a look. Ms. Arpita, can I please invite you? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vishnu. Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much, and a very good morning and good afternoon to all the participants and panelists. It's my privilege to be here. Today we are focusing on fintechs and advancements with 5G. And it's a good culmination of I have been associated with the telecom sector for 30 years. In my last role, I was the sector leader for PwC. And now I work in the financial inclusion space. So it's a pleasure to be part of this initiative and this dialogue. In fact, fintech in the most literal sense refers to the integration of technology into offerings by financial services companies in order to improve their use and delivery to their customers in services such as banking, personal investments, trading, insurance, and the likes. The change over the traditional financial service providers, which we call FSPs mostly, encompasses changes in software, algorithms, processes, and very importantly, business models. According to the latest market study, the global fintech market will reach a value of about $324 billion by 2026, growing at an average annual compounded rate of about 24%, which is significant. In order to actualize this potential, fintechs will have to leverage the frontier technology innovations in both connectivity and computation. This will help fintechs overcome some of the current challenges in delivering the required customer experience, creating customer trust, ensuring data security, and such challenges which could lead to a higher uptake and bankable use cases. Unlike its predecessor 4G, the application of 5G is not limited to only mobile phones. The increased performance offered by 5G can also accelerate advanced technological innovations such as IoT, augmented reality, AI, and virtual reality, etc. 5G actually holds the key to immersive and engaging customer experience across channels. It can be used to equip virtual assistants and chatbots with better audio, video, and language processing capabilities. For example, using VR and edge computing technologies, Banco Santander, a bank in Spain, has been allowing its customers to visit its work cafe in their bank office in Madrid. So similar such applications are developing across the world. Pop-up branches or micro branches staffed by very few employees can help take banking services to remote locations and disaster-affected sites. All that is needed is fast network and connectivity, both of which 5G delivers. Currently, there are more than 2 billion people worldwide who cannot access financial services despite decades of sustained efforts by governments across the world. Fintechs and FSPs can offer 5G offered pop-up branches, AR, VR powered customer engagement experience for delivering financial and digital literacies, giving product demos, and resolving customer complaints. These interventions could help not only further the financial inclusion agenda, but also tap this virgin customer segment in remote and rural locations where these financially excluded people mostly reside. However, as technologists, we need to appreciate that providing access to technology does not guarantee that people will use it. Consider the fact that more than 1 billion people globally in both rural and urban areas cannot read or write or understand the long number strings necessary to transact in the digital age. Natural language processing, which we call NLP, a branch of AI, helps computers understand and manipulate human languages, can enhance these people's ability and willingness to interact and transact with each other and with the service providers. This, when delivered through 5G network, could help address this communication barrier. Additional complication for fintechs that goes beyond vernacular language barriers is that many older and poor people face technology with uncertainty and often fear. Therefore, it becomes incumbent on the fintechs and the financial service providers to leverage the best-in-class technology that is available to ensure that their customers' data and privacy is protected against cyber threats and frauds in order to create the requisite trust in the ecosystem. The speed and low latency of 5G technology can facilitate fraud detection in real time. Security vulnerabilities identified by the financial service providers can be updated in real time without interrupting customer services, which is again very crucial in the developing scheme of things. Fintechs and FSPs would no longer need to depend on only one form of biometric authentication, which can probably be manipulated. The high speed and receptiveness of 5G would enable multi-dimensional biometric security procedures that combine elements like facial recognition, geolocation, customers' physical characteristics in real time to deliver instantaneous verification. In summary, 5G provides us with the opportunity to do more faster, and its potential to boost social and economic inclusion is unprecedented. However, we must not overestimate its ability to automatically deliver developmental impact for good. History teaches us that humanity is remarkably poor at sharing wealth and well-being. Will it be different in the coming decade? Much will depend on how effectively technology is leveraged to address the core issues impeding growth. And its success will fuel the growth driver, which is a viable business case. Fintech and big tech companies will need to partner with local organizations that understand the local language, culture, market needs, and opportunities to devise products and solutions that their target customers are willing to adopt and pay for. I hope this webinar deliberations will foster conversations that will contribute to inclusive and sustainable development, which eventually help us reach the SDGs, which we all as a global community are trying to do. Thank you and best wishes.
Thank you so much, Arpita, for that great encouragement talk, as well as bringing out the opportunities, weaving together these opportunities of 5G along with fintech, and reminding us of our responsibility to be inclusive. Thank you so much. Excellent opening. Now, with that excellent opening, we go to our first session of the webinar, which is on fintech advancements with 5G India region. For this, we have the right person here, Professor Janakiram, and he is the director of Institute for Development and Research in Banking Technologies. We welcome him to share his presentation on 5G use cases for fintech perspectives from India. Especially, we would like to see how some of these opportunities that Arpita talked about just now is coming to life in the use case lab. As I told you, he is the director of Institute IDRBT, an institute established by Reserve Bank of India. I won't go into details, but let me invite Professor Janakiram. Thank you so much for taking the time here, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vishnu. I'm very happy to be here at the ITU seminar and suddenly share some of the things that we're doing at the 5G use case lab. The 5G use case lab was the first lab that was set up by the Government of India, Department of Telecommunications at IDRBT. And it was a move that was done by DOT to actually exploit the 5G technology and look at how the 5G technology can be used in the BFS sector, especially. So from that perspective, I would like to share what's happening with our 5G use case lab, and especially with the team led by Dr. Abhishek and others at 5G use case lab at IDRBT. Let me start the presentation by setting the context, the 5G technical context, and try to bring what I see as a short-term opportunities that open up versus the long-term opportunities that the 5G and beyond technologies actually bring in. First thing is the modern network infrastructure is going to greatly change with the 5G and beyond networks. They provide a very high-speed connectivity, 100+ Mbps connectivity to the devices, and the density of the devices will also be very high, and the latencies are going to be quite small in that sense that you can power new kind of applications. And suddenly these are things that the features of 5G in terms of these features could really change the way we are currently looking at banking, especially moving forward, how the digital banking experience is going to drastically change for the customers. One of the key things that's going to happen with the 5G is it's not just the 5G, but 5G plus the edge cloud is what is going to make a big difference in terms of the kind of applications that will be brought as part of the 5G revolution. The key thing that's going to happen with the edge clouds is both the data and the computation will move closer to where the data gets generated. And this can suddenly change the experience, customer experience dramatically. Now, if you look at the current technologies, 10% of the processing only happens at the edge and 90% happens at the backend data centers, which means that a lot of data is taken, and then this latency is involved in the backhaul networks in terms of taking the data to the data centers and then processing and giving the experience back to the customer is suddenly a big issue in terms of the current technologies. But as we start seeing by 2025, it is predicted 90% of the data gets processed close to where the data gets generated, which means at the edge clouds. And this is where you start seeing a dramatic difference in terms of customer experiences. If you look at the intelligent video analytics, AR, VR applications, which can change the customer experience, especially remote branch experiences, taking the employee teleportation and these kind of services suddenly will bring a new experience of using the 5G in the BFS sector. I also would like to bring in the feature relating to 5G, which is going to change at a different level, and this is what is called the network slicing. The network slicing in 5G will allow you to distinguish between different kinds of network flows, and then will allow you to isolate, for example, the financial flows from other kinds of flows. Suddenly, this is something that is going to provide nationwide network slice for financial flows, which can give you an experience of a very high-speed transactions, which can be powered as part of the 5G network. I'm going to talk about the kind of next generation applications that we might experience as we go forward on that. One of the challenges that we'll face with the 5G network as we power all these applications is the microservice orchestration and the security part. This is an evolving thing as part of the infrastructure. A lot of research is still going on in this. And then I will actually point out some of the work that's happening both at IDRBT and other research centers to give you the complete context. We would also like to get you to understand as part of this that the blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, which will bring the trust component as part of these networks, is going to change the way we work with the network and also the authentication and authorization. For example, right now, as you see, the Aadhaar is suddenly a very important component in terms of authentication in India. But now, if you look at the way we work with Aadhaar, with privacy, and also making sure that we don't compromise on the data privacy, there's something that we will start seeing that there are going to be major technology advancements on that sector in terms of how we are going to use the authentication and authorization aspects with the 5G network. With this technology context, what I would like you to know. Oh, what happened to it's going there? It's not coming here. Yeah. Yeah, okay. With that technology context, let me just get you to understand how this modern network will look like, At the lowest level, what you start seeing is the
Professor Janakiram, I think if you go out of slide mode, it may change the slide.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Sorry for that small hitch. So what you see in terms of the architecture, evolving architecture that we are also looking at is basically at the lowest layer. You will see the network layer where the user equipments connect with the edge clouds, mobile edge clouds, with 5G and beyond networks. And then the backhaul networks to the data center is going to be with SDN kind of networks. So what this is going to power you is, for example, with the high speed and low latency that you get on the user equipment, you start seeing for example, the mobile wallets, which will be increasingly used for powering the transactions. Now, with the kind of speed and latency the 5G provides, you will start seeing, for example, including wearable devices, getting embedded SIM connectivity kind of thing, powering the smart transactions. For example, now you can use your watch to say, please call, for example, I can say, please call Bhavani, which is my wife, and it does that. But soon what you will start seeing with the 5G wearable devices is, I could be saying, please transfer 1,000 rupees from my account to Bhavani's account. So that will require now authentication of the voice, which means that we'll start seeing that the multi-modal authentication that will become part of the transaction processing in real time. Because now as the voice gets generated, this voice gets taken to the edge cloud, and from there to the backend cloud, and the processing happens at several of these places. And this will all, the seamless experience will be there for the end user when you start using the 5G. And as we can see, we're talking about 1 billion per day transactions using the UPI. Now the kind of user experience that we can provide using the 5G network will greatly get enhanced. Now over the middleware layer, what you start seeing is we have this zero knowledge proofs, which are very, very important and interesting. And then, and the DLT technologies, which will provide the required trust components into this layer, and also the multi-party computations, which will enable privacy-preserving computations that can happen on your network. All these technologies, when they come together, for example, with the zero knowledge proofs, when you get your Aadhaar related data onto your phone, you should be able to prove to someone that you are who you are without really disclosing all your information. And this becomes extremely important going forward, because you need to get yourself, the identity proofs need to be supplied for you when you're doing all the financial transactions. But at the same time, you want to preserve the privacy of the system, privacy of the data, which becomes extremely important. From that perspective, what you start seeing is with the 5G, you start seeing these layers of technologies getting developed. At the highest layer, you start seeing the connected devices supporting, for example, health insurance, smart health insurance. Depending on the kind of events that get triggered, you will start seeing some level of smart contracts being deployed and the whole ecosystem changing as part of the 5G infrastructure. Now, let me also next slide. Yeah, great. So what you will see here as part of the next very important aspect of the 5G is this network slice. The network slice, what you get with the network slice is these microservices being deployed on the edge as well as on the data center, and you start seeing the AI, ML kind of applications coming together with this infrastructure. Now the edge cloud could have, for example, the powerful video analytics, and then the backend data centers could have additional federated learning algorithms running, which all can be put together as part of your network slice. What the network slice will give you is putting the network functions together and service functions together and creating a service function chain, which will power the virtual private network flows. And these are customizable flows. For example, a particular bank should be able to deploy its private network virtual function flow. This is where basically we see a large number of startups and fintechs can become part of the banking ecosystem. This is something that the IDRBT 5G lab is exploring. It works with a number of startups in terms of working and then deploying applications that work along with the bank's applications. And this is where we start seeing that the customer experience, for example, the kind of customer experience that can be provided using the 5G network by a bank using the AI ML algorithms is going to be drastically changing in the coming days. And especially as we look forward to the digital banking system, evolving digital banking system, a lot of this, for example, providing video consultation in real time for financial products could be happening, and that could be very easily powered using the edge cloud and the data center with the high-powered, high data throughput user equipment that could be provided at the end of the system. Next slide, please.
Professor Janakiram, a couple of minutes. If you could wrap up, thank you.
Sure. Okay. So what we are trying to work in the whole process is also what we see is the rural 5G, where basically the local 5G with mobile edge computing and the edge devices could give us a completely new dimension to how 5G could be deployed. What we see is we have a unique opportunity in terms of putting a local 5G in rural areas and then short circuiting the network related bottlenecks that arise technologies to be deployed in the rural areas. And we see there is a great opportunity for India, especially with a local 5G kind of a network where all the customized services can be put into the local 5G network, and we can get the smart environment into the rural areas with a local 5G networks. Finally, actually, next slide, please. Finally, what I would like to point out is what are the kind of applications that our IDRBT is looking at in the case of 5G use case lab. As you can see, the 5G has all these features. For example, it supports extreme data rates, 100 plus Mbps user experience. Now, this is where basically we have developed the video analytics, KYC, and also AR, VR apps, and also financial literacy. These applications have been at an advanced stage of development as far as the use case lab is concerned. Some of them, we are able to take it out at the POC level and provide the understanding of how the 5G technology can be used on these apps. And we are also looking at, for example, co-locating co-locating the brokers, exchange and broker co-location as far as the SEBI applications are concerned. And we are also looking at smart transactions on the move as part of the next set of applications that we will be looking at. In fact, we believe that the digital financial infrastructure is going to see a drastic change when we deploy the 5G along with the digital ledger technologies. That's where we see that the most power of our digital India could be exploited for the BFS sector. With that, I will stop and then give it back to Vishnu in terms of taking this forward. Thank you, Vishnu.
Thank you so much, Professor Janakiram. Excellent segue into the technology space. Thank you so much. You talked about intelligent applications, rural applications, local flavors, edge clouds, orchestrations, exactly the things that we want to hear about in the technology space as far as the cutting edge technologies are concerned. And I can tell you from my personal experience that even other countries are looking at, other regions are looking at private 5G, local 5G, short circuiting as you call it, sir. Thank you so much. It's an excellent talk. We will take questions at the end. I know that Dr. Abhishek from IDRBT will be supporting us with the questions at the end. So can I please ask the participants to put their questions in the chat window, address it to IDRBT talk or Professor Janakiram, and we will take it at the end. At this point, we look at another distinguished speaker. Dr. N Rajendran is here. He is Chief Digital Officer for Multi-Commodity Exchange of India, MCXIndia. He will share his presentation on digital transformation, 5G and FinTech. Dr. Rajendran is presently working as Chief Digital Officer of MCXIndia. His bio is too long to read right now. It's in our website. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Dr. Rajendran, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. And my previous speakers, both Arpita and Professor Janakiram, I think took us into the in detail and wonderful presentation on the 5G networks and its own characteristics. I think it is the I had a lot of experience in starting with the no connectivity days. Even I was in fact started the payment and the technology career in the IDRBT itself. It's a wonderful experience. I had it at IDRBT. And coming to the 5G and the FinTech, I would like to share my experience and what could be the future use cases for the 5G network. The next slide. So if you see the journey in the Indian FinTech, it started around the 98, 99. And if you see those days, the bandwidths are very costly. We used to get in terms of kbps, and connectivity was big challenges. you don't get the connectivity and takes a lot more time. We need to wait for a lot of months or weeks together to get the connectivities. And the satellite, one of the options was available to establish an immediate. And that also was very costlier, and bandwidth was very, very low. And during the course of time, one of the big challenge in the digitization was the requirement of the response time. That's a latency. If you take a satellite's latency, it gone double hop. If we say satellite VSAT to VSAT and takes more than 600 to 700 milliseconds was the duration. Then later on, broadband brought down that latencies. So the journey was gradually increased in Indian industries. And later on, it the 2G, 3G, and 4G. So this is the journey of the transformation wherever the adoption taken place in fintech. But the recent 4 or 5 years after the 4G got introduced, the digital transformation has started, and it is a very aggressive mode this last 4 or 5 years. And the growth in fintech and the financial sector, it was an exponential growth in many segments. Why this is, I'm just telling this brief introduction about how we have traveled, because any transformation, the digital transformation, the underlying infrastructure, that the telecom infrastructure is very, very important. If you have a good telco infrastructure, and then you will be able to do a lot of transformation and connecting a lot of entity together and create a transformations. So now I'm coming to this 5G. What context we are talking about. The key pillars, what I see the things, the low latencies. And we'll be able to get the less than millisecond response times in the 5G. And that I'm considering as one of the key driver for the fintech revolutions. Then we have the more capacities. And 5G spectrums allows you to create the more bandwidths and faster, and reliability also it is increases. So this bandwidth, latency, reliabilities, these are the basic things if you want to make any product in digitally successful. So that way, the 4G going to play a big role in the digital transformations. See, coming to these fintech industries, how this UPI journey was successful and it becomes an exponential. One key driver was the 4G networks and the smartphone growth. Though there were a lot of solutions in the feature phones, but still it is taking very low adoption because of the various issues like the user experience, response times, and maybe a computation also become a big challenges when you have the low bandwidth or low computing environment. So if you take a financial transactions, a payment transaction, take the retail outlet to go to the retail aggregator and goes to the banking entity and go to the payment network, and again getting into the customer bank and getting a response. Normally the financial transactions around 20 milliseconds. They configure by default to take the responses. Or it takes the 20 milliseconds, it gets response is available. In some cases, we need to wait for the 20 seconds to get into the entire cycle. And in 20 seconds, how do you, 20 seconds, whenever the time increases, the user experience, the response time, the user have to wait. If you go enter into say ATM, put into the card, then you need to wait for a screen to come, then enter your PIN and enter details. So how it can be improved? Because why this constraint was there in the ATM networks? So because it's a costlier, the bandwidth availabilities, and the response time also will take longer time. So you cannot able to create a good experience to the customer. So the 5G definitely is going to change that one, because the cost of the bandwidth also going to come down because of the more volume and more spectrum is available. That's what expectation, so that it will drive the user experience differently. As if you see all this experience, all these channels now targeting to drive through the mobile as a key delivery channels. Either it is an end customer or it is a merchant outlets also. In the merchant outlets also, the mobile itself becomes the payment acceptance infrastructure. So these 5G networks will able to increase us the processing capabilities and able to create an experience in the entire retail chain networks. And getting into the smart network, then IoT channels, and how collaborations can be done. So a lot of IoT channels, if we take the integration with the transport, and integration with the vehicle service, and integration with the outlet. Say, if we take a retail outlet, so you can use the video analytics or the image-based recognition systems, and a real time you can able to create the customers' perspectives and create the what is customer looking into the retail store and what kind of product is going to be liked by a customer, whether the customer is seeing the product, why he did not bought it. Even you can use the facial expressions also can be captured and can be used as an analytics and can able to create a product kind of an output. We can able to generate the feedback mechanism through the video analytics, and that can be used to improve your product and create the more the what you say business taking mechanisms. So that way you can able to integrate a lot of IoT channels together into this the retail outlets and able to take the decisions. When you go to the what is the four-party model, just I wanted to take it to you. In the UPI, it is a different architecture and has been introduced. In the customer, normally the customer is occurred through a merchant, but here the customer is occurred through by another fintech or the banking industry. So that means there is initially it was the 4-leg transaction, and this becomes a 4-party transaction. So now it is when he increases the participant list, the ecosystem participant list increases. So it allows to create a collaboration with the more participants, fintech, banking industry, merchant aggregators, merchant retails, and able to do the create a product and able to deliver the services. So when you use a multi-tenants and multi-people involved, then you need to have a lot of the decision-taking mechanism faster. So I think this network will able to drive to provide a faster decision-making systems. And another key things, if you see the things, when you're getting into the networks and authentication systems in the payment system, one of the key area is to decide to identify and authenticate and very faster mechanism and take the decisions, and including the location identifications and the even face recognition or the biometric features. You can do a combination of lot methods. Suppose if you wanted to have an authentication have to be a dynamic. So you can ask customer, you can have an interactive authentication mechanism can be created for a very high value transaction, so that you can able to very closely, you can able to create a risk score and able to take a decision to approve based on the values. So that kind of features can be introduced into the in the payment systems, because we are having a reliable and high available bandwidths. And next.
Dr. Rajendran, sorry, if you could wrap up, thank you.
Yeah, yes. So what is the things, I think all these areas we can able to combine together the distributed computing, which already Mr. Janakiram has explained in detail. So I'm just taking an example where is the combination of the cloud and edge computing can be taken to take a faster decision making. And the security of the ATMs and even branches also can be modernized by using these technologies. And one important key requirements in trading institutes and trading systems, it requires very microsecond response time. In the microsecond response time, the 5G is one of the key characters, and this will be definitely improve the trading system, because currently to get that one, the trading system to get the response time, many people trying to co-locate are trying to take the leasing line circuit kind of things, and this 5G will able to create a different kind of working mechanism for the trading and trading exchanges. And similarly, in case of the insurance sectors also, if you see that the claims and the process, it takes a longer time, and that's also drives away the many people not getting into the insurance and claim process. And here, by using this technology, hospitals can be integrated very well and able to process maybe instant, immediately, maybe near instant, and we can able to create a good experience. And the fraudulence also, fraudulent transaction can be in timely, can be detected. So in my summary of these things, and definitely it is going to increase the user experience across the segment and going to give a good input. And thank you, and hand over to the Vishnu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajendran. Excellent connection to what we heard from the technology domain. You took us through the pillars as well as to the retail shop. I really liked your connection to the retail shop that you mentioned. It's very important to increase the user experience, and 5G plays a role there. Thank you so much for bringing out the use cases so clearly. I think we would like to thank the speaker. Take the questions. We will take the questions at the end. There is already questions coming in the chat window. We will look at the questions at the end. Meanwhile,
I have a question.
Can I please request you to put the questions in the chat window, and we will come back to you at the end. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, we have another interesting talk. We fly over from India. We have Miss Adilah Junid, Assistant Vice President of Group Regulatory Affairs, Axiata Group. It's my pleasure to invite Miss Adilah to share her presentation on developments in digital financial services and the impact of 5G. She is a regional regulatory head of Axiata Digital Services, the digital services arm of Axiata Group. Ms. Adilah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's really an honor to be able to join such a distinguished panel of experts, and thank you very much for having me here. And also congratulations to ITU and TSESI for having this program. And yeah, it's also a great pleasure for me to come after Professor Janakiram and Dr. N Rajendran, because I think they've really laid out a great foundation on the technology side. And so I hope to be able to share a little bit on my experiences and the Axiata Group experiences for the broader APAC and Malaysia in particular, and some views on how 5G might impact fintech moving forward. So if we can go to the first slide, as I mentioned, I'll just touch a little bit on fintech in terms of what it means as a transformative element into people's experiences and the quality of their lives, and a little bit into how telecommunications players have entered this space. And then I'll go into sort of some trends in the fintech space and the impact of 5G. So if I could go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is really just to set the context of what I'll be speaking about. So fintech really is just financial services and technology, So it can be as basic as the first ATM, use of technology to disperse money, to what we experienced in the late 80s, moving into the early 2000s, which is sort of more the proliferation of internet-based services and online services, to where we are today. So when we talk about fintech today, we really mean sort of mobile-enabled and services and use cases enabled by specific, more cutting-edge technologies. Speaking of which, I'll also refer quite interchangeably to fintech and digital financial services. But really, digital financial services is just financial services that rely on digital technologies, whereas fintech really, according to sort of the BIS understanding of it, refers to digital technologies that have the potential to transform the provision of financial services, for example, through new business models or applications or processes. So what has happened in the later years up till now is that new mobile and digital technologies have opened up the floor to these new processes and services, as well as new entrances beyond the realm of financial services. And this is kind of where we are heading towards today. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, speaking of new entrants, this is where sort of telecommunications players also come into it. So given the direction that the latest wave of fintech has taken, telecommunications players have been really seen as sort of the natural sort of area in which this field might move, given the ubiquity of mobile connectivity and the rapid uptake of mobile technologies, especially in the emerging and developing markets. So in the early days of mobile money, for example, people would often compare mobile penetration, which was close to 100 in many developing countries, versus bank account penetration, which was still relatively low. And actually, if you talk about formal financial institution bank account penetration, it's still relatively low compared to mobile penetration. So with that, telecommunications players really sort of started moving into financial services with mobile money. And as you can see here, sorry, I didn't label this chart. The chart on the left really is the growth of monthly active mobile money accounts. So as you can see, it's really sort of exploded, and the number of monthly active accounts has gone from 100 million in 2016 to 300 million in 2020. And these are just some findings from the GSMA on mobile money take-up, which really, as you can see, has really exploded exponentially. If you go to the next slide. So with the rise of mobile money and availability of digital services via mobile, this really has helped non-bank players sort of like contribute towards addressing financial inclusion issues as well. So the World Bank Findex, or the Financial Inclusion Index, which is sort of the go-to set of indicators for access to financial services, both formal and informal, really recognized the contribution of mobile accounts to financial inclusion in 2017. So as you can see here, it really made a difference in some countries. For example, Bangladesh and Pakistan, you can see that the growth in access to financial services really is accompanied or could have been greatly contributed to by the growth of mobile money accounts. And there are, of course, regional differences in this based on the level of maturity of the different countries. So in the more developing and emerging countries, mobile sort of overtook traditional very quickly. So people had access to financial services because of their access to mobile services. That suddenly allowed people who were previously unserved to have the access to the services almost immediately. So if we go to the next slide, this is really sort of leading into the key element of fintech, which is that it needs to have the potential to transform. So if you look at this, this is basically just a chart of relative numbers of banked, underbanked, and unbanked in the adult population. So speaking of transformative, up to maybe 4 or 5 years ago, unbanked really meant no bank account at all. But now with the recognition of digital services and mobile non-bank services as providing financial, being able to provide financial services, and the sort of like increased sophistication of those services. Now, people expect not to just have a store of money, but they also expect to be able to do things with that money that fit in with their lifestyle, for example. Unbanked and underbanked don't really just mean not having an account anymore. People expect to have access to a full suite of services. For example, credit, insurance, and investments. So right now, traditional banking services don't necessarily fully serve all of these needs of a customer, partially because it's not profitable for traditional service providers, for traditional banking service providers to serve these customers, and they don't have the traditional tools don't allow them to profitably or sustainably serve these customers with the right products that are suitable for them. So this is really where fintech comes into its own. And continues to be relevant. So if you go to the next slide, I just wanted to touch a little bit about Axiata and our experiences in this scene. So if you go to the next slide, brief background on Axiata. We're one of the largest telco groups in ASEAN and South Asia. We're present in 11 countries. And some of you may know some of our telco companies, such as Telkom in Malaysia, Robi in Bangladesh, Ncell in Nepal, XL in Indonesia, Smart in Cambodia, and Dialog in Sri Lanka. What I wanted to draw your attention to here is, apart from the telco services business, we did also branch into the digital services businesses, which right now the brand names that sort of more prominent are Boost and Aspirasi in the financial services area. So if you go to the next slide, this is just a little bit of the background on Axiata as a group. Digital businesses is actually one of the key pillars of our aspirations in the coming 5 years. If you go to the next slide, if I can dive a little bit into those digital services. So on the financial services side, we actually have two main lines at the moment. Boost is really our consumer and merchant offering. It's really a digital mobile agnostic wallet. So it's not tied to Axiata telco services. It's an agnostic digital wallet that anyone can use. And it really serves the consumer by enabling him or her to make digital payments, but it also supports micro, small and medium enterprises by enabling them to receive digital payments, which really helped, especially in the pandemic era, where we actually supported a lot of micro entrepreneurs going online and able to accept payments digitally using this mobile wallet. Apart from that, we also have Aspirasi, which is now rebranded as Boost Credit. And this really focuses on the microfinancing services that we provide, which are really focused on micro and small enterprises. So this really focuses on the small enterprises for whom it's not worth it for banks to provide business loans or working capital loans, and have very sort of like small, neat, short-term financing needs. This segment is actually served by micro credit services, which is also tied into the supply chain for them, which I can explain about a little bit later. So if you go to the next slide, actually. Yeah, this is a little bit more detail on our digital wallet offering. So as I mentioned, we've got over 8 million users, and in Malaysia, to encourage the take-up of digital payments, the government actually provided some subsidies via digital wallets, and Boost was one of the 3 main wallets in Malaysia that was used to give out these subsidies through balances in the digital wallet. We've also got more than 200,000 merchant touchpoints. And I think a defining feature of the Boost, the Axiata wallet, is that we do focus on really sort of the micro cash merchants, the mom and pop shops, the sort of like normal small stores that only accept cash payments. We're actually enabling them to accept digital payments through this wallet. We also have actually expanded a little bit into Indonesia. For Indonesia, we really focus more on enabling the merchants to accept digital payments. So we partner with other mobile payments wallets and focus on getting the merchants to be able to accept that. So we have a merchant network in Indonesia. If we move to the next slide, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So this is where we are really moving more into the use of technology to offer financial services in a transformative way. So under the Aspirasi, which is now rebranded as the Boost Credit, under this brand, we have actually provided financing to small and medium enterprises in a fully digital manner. So there's no need for them to come into any shop and provide physical documentation or sign any documents physically. And this is quite transformative because the landscape for providing this service in Malaysia and in many countries, actually, it's not supportive. So there are many regulations that if you were to lend digitally, if you were to do microfinancing, would require you to come into an office, attest in front of a commissioner for oaths, for example, even put a thumbprint, for example. And these have been quite prohibitive and have led a lot of the smaller businesses to resort to very high costs and potentially illegal or risky means of financing themselves. However, with the Aspirasi or Boost Credit microfinancing services, we've actually partnered with distributors and supply chain players to be able to credit score a lot of these smaller businesses and offer them fully digital working capital or invoice financing or supply chain financing that offers the credit decision within 3 minutes as compared to a traditional bank financing, which first of all doesn't even have products for small ticket loans. But if they were to provide a working capital loan, can take up to 1 to 2 weeks to make that decision. And the onboarding is fully digital. So that's with eKYC, capturing the image of their ID, capturing their selfie. And the disbursement is within 24 hours, which again is very different from a traditional bank, which can take, I think, up to 48 hours. Also,
Adilah, sorry, would you be able to wrap up in a couple of minutes?
Absolutely, yes, I'll do that.
Thank you.
So in addition to that, I think the critical thing is a lot of these borrowers are new to credit, meaning they do not actually have credit scores that would enable a traditional bank to have loaned to them in the first place. So let me move very quickly to, if I could jump several slides down, sorry, another slide, another slide, another slide, another slide. Okay, just very quickly. So virtual digital banks have sort of started taking off in APAC, and other than Hong Kong or Singapore, Malaysia has actually been the next to kick off digital banking by offering a digital bank license. The applications closed mid last year, and we're hoping to get a result before the end of Q2 next year. And one of the requirements for this license is that it has to be transformative and served an underserved segment. So just to let you know that this is one of the developments taking place in the region. If you can go to the next slide and the next slide. Okay, so this is basically really, I suppose, the meat of it, which is that how 5G impacts fintech, right? So I just wanted to draw a distinction here with this chart between the technology and the use case. So the key technologies being used, I think, as Professor Janakiram mentioned, they're really artificial intelligence, things like artificial intelligence, big data analytics, IoT, use of the cloud. These are the technologies, but the use cases are things like payments, credit, remittance, savings, insurance, and those are specific use cases are the ones that you hear of, like blockchain or crypto or crowdfunding. So really how 5G will impact fintech is by enabling the technologies to work better, which is exactly as what Professor Janakiram has mentioned, low latency, higher speeds, availability, capacity. So if you go to the last slide, and this is where I'll wrap up, how this impacts actual fintech, I think what I can focus on is the customer perspective. Really, I think it's not that we cannot do a lot of things that now already. We can do a lot of things now. There's already ability to do analytics, to use AI, but the issue, my personal view, is really the customer experience. There's a lot of latency and it's slow, and customers actually drop off a lot. We've seen they drop off a lot when things do not respond quickly. So what 5G really will do is, because it can address those issues with speed, latency, processing power, ability to process more data with more accuracy, which then helps service providers reduce their risks and therefore reduce the costs of serving what would be previously underserved or unserved customers. This is really the transformative power that 5G will bring to the fintech space. There will be regulatory considerations for that. For example, traditional banking regulators, how do they assess whether or not a credit scoring model that uses machine learning is or is not biased, or is not accurate? So these are some of the things that will also arise when 5G takes off. But overall, I'd say I'm very excited with this developments. And yeah, thank you very much. I hope I haven't taken too much time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Adilah. And thank you for sharing your wisdom from many markets. I see that one size does not fit all. That's my key learning from what you explained, and your experience from different markets is quite interesting. And of course, I am waiting for my customized experience from the bank, but it never understands. So yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. Let's thank the speaker. Hang on to the questions in the chat window. We go over to Philippines. We have, it's my pleasure to invite our next speaker, Ms. Pamela Isabelle Belen, President of HomeJoy and Fintech Alliance Philippines, to share her presentation on 5G and Fintech digital transformation. Ms. Pamela, it's an honor to have you here, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to present today, and I hope everybody's having a good day. And it's actually my birthday too, so this is quite a special day for me, and I'm spending it with everyone here. And just a bit of background also about myself. Very excited to be part of this panel. I am a CPA by education, by profession, and then crossed into technology in 2013 until 2018, wherein I worked with the top banks in the Philippines and also the top telco in the Philippines when it comes to digital transformation. And now with Umpisa, so it's thank you to ITU for allowing a young tech company like ours to be a representative in this panel discussion. We've been operating for 3 years, and now we've been also active in the fintech space and also working with enterprises in the Philippines. Okay, next slide, please. A little more about our country. Maybe some of you have known that that the Philippines has always been at the center stage when it comes to all things digital. We have been the SMS capital of the world, and we continue to be the social media capital of the world. And as you can see the statistics here, an average Filipino spends 11 hours on their mobile devices. So you might ask, what are we doing? What are we doing here in our country? And basically, we do have, whenever we're working, for example, or watching TV, we're always on our mobile phones. And as you can see, in a population of 110 million in our country, we have 169 million mobile phones. So more, a typical Filipino would at least have 2 phones or at least 2 SIM cards that they carry with them. And because of this, we're also a very young population. Average age is 20 to 24. Next slide, please. And because of that, and because of the pandemic, it's for tech companies, for fintech companies, and I would say all of the businesses. This is a very good time to grab this opportunity for our customers to go digital. And in our country, it's our central bank governor, Benjamin Jokno, has been quite popular as he pushes really fintech firms to strike while the iron is hot. And you would always see him on webinars, on Facebook Lives and all that, pushing for companies and fintech to make use of this time to offer various financial services, and also crafting favorable regulatory policies so that more and more Filipinos will be part of the financial system, but making sure that these fintech services are still monitored, but it does not stifle the creativity and the innovation of these fintech companies. Next slide, please. And not only is our central bank governor, our country pushing for firms to be digital, but also the public. So there's really that education and that real push for everybody to embrace digital, and for our country to really have digital financial inclusion. When we started working with the top banks in the Philippines for digital transformation, that has always been the goal. That was 2013. All of the top banks in the Philippines have always wanted to get this, to serve this underserved market, but it was just quite difficult, like what was discussed by the prior speakers, because the cost benefit to it just doesn't make any sense. But now, because of the timing and because of all of the support, we are getting there. Also with a 5G rollout for sure. Next slide, please. And the central bank has this goal that by 2023, all of the payment transactions are going to be online in 2023. So that's just 24 months away. Okay, next slide. And let me share with you some use cases, or I would say some success stories in the Philippines when it comes to fintech. And I will focus on these two. So that's GCash and Union Bank. So for just as a trivia here, these companies are actually led by executives, or by executives from the top telco now in the Philippines. That's Globe that is backed by Alibaba. So for GCash, there's just a minor error there. They started very, very early. So that was 2004. But of course, the market timing wasn't there yet. But because of the pandemic in 2020, it became a household name now. And it's the first ever unicorn company in the Philippines. So that's GCash. And second is Union Bank. So I would say that Union Bank, in terms of a bank that really digitally transformed and is top of mind, that is Union Bank. And again, that's led by somebody from the telco sector. He used to be in the telco industry for 2 decades. And their digital transformation journey started 2016. Okay, so let's focus first on GCash. Next slide, please. So here, GCash is really, again, it's under Globe Telco. So this is the innovative arm of the top telco in the Philippines. Very innovative telco company. And with GCash, as you can see here in my slide, even at wet markets and even at the local stores here, you can really find GCash and you can use it. It even achieved the verb status. So at common conversations, if you are to pay something, the word used is GCash it, or i-GCash muna, because that's how popular it is now and how easy it is to use. But it's very reminiscent of Alipay. So I'm sure like these photos that I'm showing right now, that's also what you would see from the story of Alipay. And here I'm also focusing Martha Sazon. So she used to be again with Globe. And this is a feature just recently. This was I just got this from LinkedIn a couple of days ago, where we were GCash, the Philippines was put on the spotlight because of its growth and success in financial inclusion in our country. Next slide, please. And how they did it was I just put it here. I just listed it down. They of course started with basic services. So that's buying load. So that's airtime credits. We call it load in the Philippines, and also sending money, because that's very common, of course, perhaps in most of in other countries too, and also bills payment. And then they introduced eKYC. So GCash was the first to do that, and then the rest followed suit. And then they joined our local railway for interbank transfers. That's InstaPay. So that has always been a question, even in my head before, like, why can I just not pay using my mobile phone? And GCash did it with being part of the InstaPay network. And then they slowly, of course, they've been operating like a tech company and improving and enhancing their services. That they just this 2020 they added GSave and GCredit, so providing means for a common Filipino to have savings accounts and also to have a small amount of loan. And then now, just as I check my GCash app from time to time, they did add insurance products there, and you can also start investing using the app. So that's how rich and that's how the ecosystem has been evolving, and that's why it's been very, very successful. And because of its growth, next slide, please. As you can see here, the GCash users in our population of 110 million, there are now 51 million registered users. It jumped from 20 million, so that was pre-pandemic. And there are now 3.9 million merchants and sellers on the GCash network, excluding the partners for cashing in and cashing out the digital money, and the 800 partner billers. If you look at the gross transactions here for this year of 2021, we are looking at around 3 trillion pesos or $56 billion in the GCash ecosystem. So that's how it's amazing, actually. And let's say somebody wants to compete with them, it's really like a tall order as well. Okay, then now let's look at a bank that's successfully transformed digitally. And I want to just focus on Henry Aguda here. He was my colleague also before, and then currently now with Union Bank. So it was a pleasure that I was able to talk to him. And he led the transformation of the bank. And currently, Union Bank now has 2.2 million digital customers, mainly because of the digital onboarding process that they started out. And then the success of their digital transformation efforts, wherein 43,000 accounts per month have been opened since they've launched the Union Bank online app. And this actually, again, became the leader, and then the other banks now made sure that they have this eKYC process. All right.
Ms. Pamela, sorry,
yes.
If you could speed up, please.
Okay.
We would like to wrap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll do that. So that's Union Bank. And next slide, please. And just some of the successes and some great things that they did. They also established UBX, which is their corporate venture capital arm. So they do provide guidance and also financial investment. And then the phase 2 of their digital transformation would focus on data science, AI, and also blockchain, or DLT. So as also discussed by the previous panelists, because they also want to be able to make sure that cyber crimes will be prevented and detected, and also there's going to be more personalized experiences for their customers. Next slide, please. So I'm wrapping it up. So now, forward looking, of course, our telco company providers in the Philippines are making sure that we roll out 5G. And because of the pandemic, Philippines is now Southeast Asia's fastest growing digital economy. And we foresee that it's going to continue to grow, really accelerate. And we're looking at a $40 billion GMV by 2025 for the Philippines. And it's largely driven by e-commerce, food and grocery delivery, and also digital payments. Next slide, please. And because of this market that we're looking at, we are finally attracting foreign VCs. So there have been investments in the Philippines, particularly for fintech companies. But these are the big ones. So we're talking here GCash again and PayMaya. Next slide, please. And just this year, so the amount of money put in most of the startups, it's more than what was raised the past 3 years combined. So it's a good sign for Filipino firms and fintech companies primarily. Next slide, please. that's why we expect more fintech startups for financial innovation and inclusion. Next slide, please. And however, the reality is, of course, while there is that very good opportunity, we are in terms of quality startups and also access to strategic and early stage financial investors to at least grab all these opportunities in our home country, which they can focus on these core market areas. This is for startups like us. This is what we need. So that's it for me, and hope you learned a thing or two from my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pamela. It has been great learning. I found it really interesting that Gcash has become a verb now. Let us Gcash it. It's great. Yes, it's fantastic. It's fantastic journey and learning. Thank you for sharing the learnings from Philippines, and a happy birthday to you. Where is the cake emoji? I am looking for that. Thank you so much again. Can I invite Calvin back to share the questions? We will have a very short, rapid fire question session, really rapid fire. Can I please invite Calvin back to the stage, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vishnu. So there are 3 questions. The first question is regarding if there are any local 5G use cases as implemented anywhere with products available. This can be of great help in taking high-speed broadband to rural areas to overcome costly fiber due to the low density of users. So that's the first question. The second question is around with fintech advancing at such a pace, are there any practical steps that service providers can do to ensure the end users' legal security against financial and identity fraud? And finally, the last question is, what data points do you rely on for credit scoring for digital financing to MSMEs? And that is specifically directed towards the speaker from Axiata.
Very good. Thank you very much. You heard Calvin. Can I please ask Abhishek, Dr. Abhishek, for his views on the first question, please?
Yeah, the local networks, to the best of our knowledge, for rural deployments are not there yet. IDRBT, we are putting an effort to enable one in Q1 of next year. So all are welcome to join in the effort, both as part of setting up and further experimentation as we go beyond the setup.
Thank you very much, Abhishek. Can I ask Dr. Rajendran for any short comments, please?
Yeah, now the 5G networks has been used now in the OTT platforms, just providing the content deliveries. And I think it will pick up in due course on the, once the spectrum allocations is done, no, then it will, big way it will come into the use in the most of the financial and other industries also.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajendran. About the second question, can I ask Ms. Adilah if she has any comments, please?
Sure. Sorry, this second question was about security, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, as usual, education, because a lot of these issues really are actually, what's the word for it? Human error, confidence tricks. That's often really the main issue. So yeah, consumer protection and education, but of course always the usual sort of cybersecurity measures. You know, always do your penetration testing and have your all of that kind of thing in place. And I can actually very quickly address the third one if you'd like, the data points for credit scoring. So for the supply chain financing, we really use the data from partners in the distribution network.
Thank you so much.
With, of course, the agreement and consent of all the parties. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. Can I ask Ms. Pamela, do you see any of this, any comments from your experience, please? Anything which you would like to add?
For the lending, for the small businesses lending data points.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, most of the digital lending companies in the Philippines focus more on the consumer, on the end consumer market. So there's really that space for the SMEs. I do know a few fintech startups that would like to get into that space as well, but I guess it's still in confidential. It's still confidential, so couldn't disclose more. But more of like the lending to individuals is the trend still in the Philippines as of the moment.
Understood. Can I ask Arpita, any last minute comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in India, of course, 5G spectrum, etc., still needs to be allocated. But we have been hearing about US, Verizon, etc., running trials with these pop-up branches and disaster sites. And on the credit scoring one, both for Adilah and Pamela, it's very interesting. We work in this space all the time. And I think the data points to be able to do proper credit scoring to this unserved population who don't have a credit history, I think is a challenge that you operators are all facing. And that is why my question. They don't have credit. Yeah, and then if you have telco data, etc., there's always that issue of privacy and whether the regulatory restrictions would stop you from using the telco and those data points into the credit scoring. So if any other views you have, I'm happy to hear that. I think it'll be useful for the audience to hear as well. Thank you.
Well, I could very quickly say that telco data, the issue also is the amounts for which you can score. It's not really that reliable to score for anything more than what you'd spend on your telco bill. So yeah, it is a challenge, it's an ongoing challenge. And even if we pass that hurdle of getting the right data sets, it's then talking to regulators on whether or not that's something as an acceptable basis to take that risk. So I agree with you.
Thank you for raising that question, Arpita. Thank you so much for raising that question. Abhishek, please. Yes.
I just wanted to chime in a bit. Sorry, you can go ahead, Pam.
Okay, so I guess to answer also, so from my end, there have been several attempts also in the Philippines to start credit scoring, because that is still a very foreign concept in the Philippines. Like every time I travel in the US, I'm like, they talk credit score, and I'm like, that's not in the vocabulary of even like learned people like myself, what more those that are like the common folks. So I think there have been, aside from telco data, so we have also been using that for some credit scoring, and also the data brokerage. So that's also something that we do in the Philippines, so that you can assess the credit worthiness of a person. But otherwise, if it's not proprietary, you do that data brokering, but then there aren't that many yet, I would say, experts when it comes to the legal aspect of it, because like the whole data privacy and security, and so most of the companies don't have the time, and maybe even the resources to get into the whole data brokerage thing. So that becomes a hurdle. But I think the credit scoring aspect is really something that we will get to, because it's very important, and having that digital financial inclusion being pushed by our central bank is going to help out with that.
Understood. Thank you so much for sharing that valuable insight. Abhishek, any
just
thoughts?
One quick comment. With 5G opportunities opening up, what Professor Janakiram also alluded to, probably banks and telcos can come together to provide a virtual or a digital twin in financial realm to safeguard security for people at base of the pyramid, at bulk of the pyramid. If they're not digitally literate, the legislations will follow, but some experiments will be ongoing in the near future, even from IDRBT use case lab.
Understood. Excellent. Thank you so much for coming back to that point from Professor Janakiram. With that, I think we are in the closing stages. Can I please ask the Slido? There has been a lot of activity in the Slido. Can I please request Calvin to put up the Slido, please? There it is. You see, let me quickly run through my impressions. We started with Arpita's excellent setup of the sessions. She talked about our responsibilities, she talked about opportunities and inclusiveness, which has been running throughout the session anyways. Professor Janakiram talked about 5G and the edge cloud, edge intelligence, etc., which was excellent introduction to the technology side. And we heard from an array of speakers, Dr. Rajendran, Ms. Adilah and Ms. Pam. We heard from all of them along the space of 5G opportunities, use cases, retail, banking. You heard all these technologies that you see here. The word cloud is perfect. Thank you so much. With that, I want to hand over to Calvin to close this session. Once again, from my side, thank you so much for coming. And the speakers, excellent insights from across the world. Thank you so much. Over to you, Calvin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vishnu, and thank you very much again to our dear participants and speakers for their kind remarks throughout this day. We've been really grateful to have such an esteemed panel with us, and we are excited about the discussions that have happened. So with this, I want to say that we are now officially, this session is officially over. There is a feedback link in the chat right now, actually. That feedback link is posted on our partners TSDSI's website. If you could please click on that feedback link and please provide your feedback about today's session, that would be greatly appreciated. Additionally, I wanted to announce that in 30 minutes, the fun doesn't stop. In 30 minutes, we will be having the Regional Innovation Forum for Asia and the Pacific. The direct Zoom link, my colleague, has also just been put in the chat the Zoom link has been put in by my chat colleague in the chat. So please click on that Zoom link and please join us for a fascinating discussion about the digital economy, digital trade, and innovation in general. Finally, may I please flag that we will be hosting the next series of this TSDSI IT webinar series in January. More information will be available shortly. And so please keep an eye out for that. And we'll be sending out an email blast about that as well. And with that, once again, may I also please thank our great moderator, Mr. Vishnu, today for his kind moderation of today's session. And once again, thank you to our dear speakers and participants. And with that, may we officially close the session, hoping to see you all in 29 minutes at the Regional Innovation Forum. Thank you all.